Hey, it's your friend Cristiano, and welcome to the Queer Quest podcast. Hello, gorgeous soul. Welcome back to the Queer Quest podcast, where we meet at the intersection of queer spirit, creativity, and transformative stories. Today, I'm diving into a part of our culture that often gets overlooked, but is soul-soothing and revolutionary: queer literature. So this episode is titled Top Queer Literature of 2025, Representation, Complexity, and the Stories That Save Us. Because let's be real, queer books do something different. They don't just show up, they immerse us in lives that feel like our own. They sit with our messy internal monologues. They linger in our systems long after we turn the last page. The power of the queer page. Identify this truth within yourself. Books are intimacy machines. They allow us to peek into queer hearts, to ride the wave of their joy and sorrow, and to be drawn into worlds that reflect us fully, with shame, with ecstasy, with fear, and with glory. Movies and TV can give visibility, but books actually give the voice. They allow us to feel the soft collapse of a trans men's realization, or the glitchy heartbeat of a sapphic love story in sci-fi. They let characters think loud, hurt deep, and heal radically. Now, if you get value out of today, which I trust that you will, then can you please do this episode and the podcast a huge favor and help boost it to others in the queer community by liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing and tagging and reviewing us, as this is more than you may know towards getting this episode and the podcast in the hands of the queer people who really do need it most. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So what are we going to explore today? The queer literacy landscape of 2025. What trends that we are seeing and who's publishing them and who is on the rise. So we're going to focus on the top 6 queer books of the year so far that you need on your shelves. Now, these are stories that starred trans protagonists, captured Black queer saga, offered neurodivergent joy and magic. We're going to be talking about what's still missing in queer literature, the identities and the depths that we still need to talk about. We're going to be talking about why queer books break the mold with complexity that TV has yet to match. We're going to talk about a closing reflection and community call-in to keep the conversation and the creation alive. We're going to talk about what's changed in 2025, because this year, it marks a powerful shift. A surge of trans and non-binary voices across all of fiction. Deep dives into ancestry, diaspora, and family through queer lenses. A rise in speculative, sapphic fantasy and global queer narratives, from Palestinian poets to South African magical realism. Independent presser and queer imprints are rejecting sanitization and embracing the wild, messy truth of real queer lives. Now, why does this matter? Because after decades of reading about queer pain as political capital, we're now entering a time when queer stories can be about magic, about desire, about ancestral healing, about friendship, about effervescent joy. Not because the pain has stopped existing, but because joy deserves an equal platform and equal stage. So we're going to dive into the top 6 books of 2025 in just a moment, including novels that blew my mind, poems that whispered to my bones, and voices that are reshaping queer stories forever. Let's dive into the curated queer books of 2025 that are making waves, pushing boundaries, exploring identity, and delivering emotional resonance only literature can provide. So let's start with number 1, which is Love Misha by Askell Aden, who is a young adult graphic novel. Now, it's a beautifully illustrated mother, non-binary child road trip through forests and dreams and ancestral spirits. Now, why does it matter? It's a tender portrayal of the non-binary identity, with that connection and the parental growth, which is both real magical. Love Misha moves against this binary thinking, and it highlights warmth, nuance, and emotional realism, which is something I think we all need to understand deeply as well. Let's move on to Stag Dance by Corey Peters, who is a trans literary fiction with a genre flair. Now, this is 4 bold stories with the title novella set in a lumberjack camp. Delve into trans and gender fluid themes across dystopia, romance, and tall tale fiction. Critics have been calling it genre-defying and emotionally rich. Now, it's inspired by detransition, baby, and Peters asks new questions about trans experience without centering trauma, which I think is an important topic to understand about. Without centering on trauma, it's about the trans experience. We need more of those stories. The next one is Hunger Stone by Kat Dunn, which is a sapphic gothic vampire novel. It is a reimagining of Camilla. This tale follows a married woman drawn into vampiric sapphic romance within a dystopian steel town setting. It's a perfect blend of sapphic romance, of historical nods, and genre revival. Next is Woodworking by Emily St. James, which is trans adult fiction. Midlife comes out. A 35-year-old trans woman in rural South Dakota forms a friendship with a trans teen, exploring community, mentorship, and identity. This dual POV novel captures early career trans adult experiences and small town nuance, which I think is really important for us to understand about people in our community in small towns and all the nuances that come with it at times as well. The 5th book is When the Harvest Comes by Danae Michelle Norris. So it's a Black gay men's fiction. Centers on a young Black gay man confronting family betrayal and grief on the night of his own wedding reception. So from Electric Literature's trans trailblazing editor, this is a tender, complex portrait of heritage and queerness as well. And the final book we're talking about, which is Disco Witches of Fire Island by Blair Fell. Again, a sapphic supernatural mystery. So it's summertime, it's Fire Island Coven, it's feminist magic, and it's drag disco chaos. So with a title which clearly is super bold, this novel promises queer joy, lots of campness, and a magical escapism. So what are these books revealing? Spectrum and intersectionality. From young adult non-binary identity, Love Misha, to elder trans wisdom, Woodworking, to global goth sapphic love. These books span a wide queer spectrum. What are the complex emotional depths? Peter's Stag Dance and Norris's Family Saga offer layered reflection, not reduction. And the genre freedom? Sapphic vampire stories by Hungerstone, witchy summers, with the disco witches, trans mentor arcs with Woodworking, and supernatural young adult show genre fluidity within queer literature. Up next, we'll discuss the identities still missing in queer literature and why reading queer books feels more potent than watching shows. Hey love, while I've got you, I want to gift you with something powerful. Something I wish I had when I was cracked open and crawling through the mess of heartbreak, shame, and that deep ache of, why am I like this? If you've ever felt like healing is this confusing, invisible maze where you're just surviving one emotional breakdown after another. If you've been wondering, is something wrong with me? I want you to know, you're not lost. You're not broken. You're becoming. Most queer people were never given a roadmap for healing. We were taught to hide, to perform, and to shrink. We've been gaslit by religion, erased by culture, and taught to just get over it. But healing isn't a straight line, especially when you're queer. It's not just about feeling better. It's about coming home to your queer, radiant, whole hour self. That's why I created the Journey to Queer Healing, a free guide that maps out the 18 emotional stages of queer healing. It's not just theory, it's your soul's survival map. You'll see where you are, what's next, and what's possible on the other side of the pain. This guide has helped hundreds of queer people realize it's not just me. I'm not behind. I finally understand what I'm going through. Download the guide today. Let it remind you, your healing isn't random. It's divine. Download it now via the link in the show notes. Or you can comment guide on this video or on any of my socials and I'll send it directly to you. And when you're ready to go deeper, join us for the Queer Comeback webinar. Let's make your healing sacred and make your comeback legendary. I'll see you on the journey. Welcome back, darling listeners. So far, we've celebrated the brilliance of 2025's queer books. But now, let's talk about what's still not on the page. Because even in a year with sapphic vampires, non-binary road trips, and trans mass mentorship, there are still so many queer lives, truths, and textures we don't see enough of in literature. One, we've got asexual, aromantic, and intersex characters. These identities are still vastly underrepresented. And when they are written, it's often by authors outside the community, reducing characters to educational tropes or plot devices. We need more ace joy, more arrow adventure, more intersex heroes. Not just trauma, not just explanation. We want existence. And the second is queer elders and aging narratives. So where are the queer seniors falling in love for the second or third time? The trans women in their 60s writing memoirs in cabins. The retired drag queens babysitting their trans grandkids. Queer stories don't stop at 30. They don't stop at coming out. We need legacy, mentorship, aging, and reflection in our narratives. Number 3, spiritual, mystical, and ancestral queer stories. While fantasy and magic are rising in popularity, spirituality, especially in queer cultural and ancestral contexts, is still rare. We need more books that blend queerness with ancestral healing, indigenous magic, queer mysticism, plant medicine journeys. Queer witches, yes, but also queer monks and queer healers and queer shaman. Because queerness is not just political or sexual, it's cosmic. Number 4, fat, disabled, and neurodivergent queer protagonists. Still too often, we get skinny, able-bodied, quirky but palatable characters. We want messy, real, multi-dimensional protagonists. Fat femmes thriving in pleasure. Neurodivergent queers running queer businesses. Disabled trans joy and sexuality depicted without inspiration form. Intersectionality is not optional anymore. It's the minimum. Number 5, working class queer stories. Where are the books about queer servers, bartenders, bus drivers, market sellers? The drag queens sewing rhinestones in one hand or paying rent with the other. Class still separates the polished queer story from the real ones. And we need literature that shows the full range of queerness, not just in identity, but in economics as well. Why does this matter? Representation isn't a buzzword, it's a mirror. When we don't see ourselves, we internalize absence as shame. When we only see queerness framed by pain or perfection, we believe we must be either victims or icons. But queer life is messy, it's funny, it's slow, it's wild, it's mundane, and it's magical. So we deserve stories that reflect all of it. Now in part 3, we'll explore why books capture depth more powerfully than film or TV, and what it means to read stories truly written for us, by us. Hey babe, quick moment before we dive back in. I have a question for your soul. Have you ever felt like you lost yourself somewhere along the way? Maybe it was the breakup that shattered you, or the years spent hiding, bending, blending just to feel safe. Or maybe it's the quiet ache that whispers there has to be more to this life than just surviving. Well, I want to invite you to something that's not just a webinar. It's a comeback, a queer one, a sacred, fabulous, F the rules kind of comeback. It's called the Queer Comeback Webinar. And inside, I'm sharing the 3 secrets every queer soul needs to know to come home to themselves, unapologetically, spiritually, powerfully. This isn't about fixing you because you're not broken. This is about remembering who the F you are. If you're tired of dimming your light, people pleasing, or playing small just because of society's judgment, come. This is your moment. Not someday, not when, you're more ready. Now. Tap the link in the show notes or just comment comeback and I'll send you the link. Reserve your free spot now. And if you're multitasking right now, pause this video for just 1 second and do this for you. Your comeback isn't deserved, it's overdue. I'll see you there, my loves. All right, sweet one, here's the truth bomb we've been circling around. Queer books do what TV and movies rarely can. They don't just show you a character, they let you live inside them. So let's unpack that. TV and film are external. Film and television are gorgeous mediums. I love them. They give us visuals, they give us soundtracks, they give us style. They help us see queerness made visible. But they're limited by screen time, pacing, mainstream marketability, corporate censorship, what executives think the general audience can handle. Even in queer TV made by queer folks, we often still feel the pressure of mass appeal. A queer couple might exist, but the depth of their trauma, or the reality of their kink, or the mess of their neurodivergence, that gets edited out. But literature is internal. Books invite you into the bloodstream of a queer character's life. You get to hear the intrusive thoughts, sit in the silence of their yearning, understand why they ghosted their ex and why they cried about it afterward. Feel what it's like to be misgendered at the pharmacy and pretend it didn't hurt until later in the shower. And most importantly, books allow room for contradiction. Queer people are rarely one note. We are complexity embodied. We can be fierce and fragile, sacred and slutty, visionary and avoidant, all in one paragraph. Written for us, by us. Most queer books aren't written to make us more palatable. They're written to make us more real. They're not asking for permission. They're offering resonance. Many of these authors don't water down our reality. They amplify it because they know what it means to walk through the world as queer. They write for the ones who never saw themselves on their parents' bookshelves, for the queer kids who hid paperbacks under their pillows, for the elders who never got to tell their story until now. Final thoughts before we close out this episode. Literature doesn't just tell queer stories. It remembers them. It archives them. It dreams new worlds into being from within our own bones. And that's why queer books will always be sacred ground for this community. In this final part, I'm going to leave you with a heart-centered invitation to keep reading, keep writing, and keep remembering. So here we are at the last page of today's journey. We've wandered through the libraries of 2025. We've met trans lumberjacks and sapphic vampires, non-binary children, and Fire Island witches. We've confronted what's still missing and celebrated how far we've come. But before we close this episode, I want to leave you with something deeper than just a list of books. I want to remind you of something sacred. You are a living story. That's right. You are a living story. Maybe you've never written a word. Maybe you don't see yourself on the bookshelves yet. Maybe your queerness still feels too complex, too intersectional, too sacred, too weird, too real to ever be captured. But your life is still a text worth reading. Every emotion you felt, every friend you've lost, every poem you've scribbled in the notes app or hidden in a journal, it matters. It belongs. It is literature in motion. Keep reading, keep writing, keep living queerly. This is a love letter to every queer person who highlighted queer quotes in secret, cried reading a coming out scene that mirrored their own, never saw themselves in books, so started writing their own, gave their best friend their favorite queer novel, hoping it would, explain them better than they ever could. And if no one has held you fully yet, maybe it's because you're the one who's meant to write it. Let's keep turning the pages. I'm back next week with another juicy AF episode of the Queer Quest podcast. If this episode moved you, send it to your queer bookworm bestie, your writing circle, your partner, or your younger self. And if you want more spaces like this, more conversation, community, and soul-expanding queer joy, check out the resource section below. You can download my free queer healing guide, come check out my free webinar, The Queer Comeback, or join us inside Queer Quest Pro, where we can help you be an inspiration to others. Not just, during Pride Month, the whole goddamn year. Have you ever got a favorite queer book that saved you? Tag us, message us, or come join our Queer Quest community, where we celebrate every part of you from cover to conclusion. And if you got value out of today, which I trust that you have, then can you please do this episode and the podcast a huge favor and help boost it to others in the queer community by liking and commenting and sharing and tagging and subscribing and reviewing us, as this does more than you may know towards getting this episode in the hands of the queer people who truly need it most. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, stay curious, stay queer, and never stop writing your own story. I'll be back very soon. Until then, always remember that you've got this, I've got you. Bye for now. Hey, love, before you go, I need to tell you something important. You weren't meant to do this healing journey alone. You weren't meant to figure out your queer identity, your purpose, your healing, your worth in silence. So if you've been listening and thinking, I'm ready, I want to transform, I want to live fully, I just don't know how, this is your sign. This is your queer comeback. Welcome to Queer Quest Pro, a revolutionary 12-month journey of queer healing, growth, and transformation in every area of your life. From your mental and emotional health to your spiritual connection, purpose, finances, identity, relationships. This is your full circle evolution. We guide you month by month through the queer wellness wheel of life with workshops, live coaching, quests, rituals, and a global community of queer souls rising together. It's the place for woke queer humans who are ready to rise unapologetically. Because healing is hard, but healing in community, that's sacred. And baby, you deserve sacred. Are you ready to live a life that actually feels like yours? Click the link in the show notes to join us now. Doors are open. We're waiting for you inside. This is your comeback. Don't miss it.